Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Odoo webinar all about the SPS commerce integration that allows people to have EDI functionality. My name is Brett, and I've been the acting VP of sales here in Odoo West in San Francisco, California, which means I get to work with a variety of different sales teams here: direct sales, partnership sales, account management, customer success, and mid-market. And just kind of as a weird twist of fate, I've also ended up being sort of a spokesperson, ambassador for this particular EDI integration that we have, which we're going to cover today. And yeah, that's the main agenda. The purpose is we want to go into the power of EDI with SPS Commerce. First, I'm going to talk about what is EDI, because maybe you're a newcomer and you have no idea at all, or maybe you have a rough idea, but I'm going to define EDI, and then we're going to talk about SPS Commerce. Who are they? Then we're going to spend some time talking about Odoo's integration itself. Now, it's not going to be a live demo, but the good news is that for this topic, you don't really need a live demo to understand what it does. So I'll do a pretty thorough job of explaining what it actually will allow you to do. And then very exciting we get to talk about some of the new changes for the new version. There's quite a few, both in terms of expanding the scope and also just improving it. And then we're going to talk about deployment. How do you get it? As well as what would the cost be? And then at the end, we should have plenty of time for Q&A. I should say that if you have questions along the way, feel free to add them in the chat. And we will have members from Odoo that should be able to comment on some of those. Otherwise, they'll collect the questions and then I'll try to answer them at the end. I should say, though, that as I already mentioned before, I have more of a sales background, and while I do have a pretty good general understanding of the integration, if it gets too technical, we're just going to have to get back to you with the answer. And in other words, if it gets into actually how do we develop this, how do we modify the code, that's not something that I'm going to be able to answer, but feel free to ask anyway. So yeah, let's get into it. What is EDI? And a good way to look at it, it is called electronic data interchange. That's what it stands for. It's an industry term. But more specifically, what does that mean? It's rapid digital transfer of business documents. And by business documents, we mean things like sales orders, purchase orders, invoices, delivery notices, things like that, generally between, say, your business and your trading partners. So a large supplier, a large customer, something like that. That's what it is all about. More specifically, it's almost always used for B2B. So if you're dealing with a large wholesaler, I think classic examples would be like, say that you sell to Amazon or you sell to Walmart, and you're doing that in B2B. At a high volume, EDI makes a lot of sense. It's not going to make as much sense as commonly if you are selling a pair of shoes to a person in a shoe store. That doesn't really make sense. So yeah, it's great for B2B, it's great for high volume, and the advantage is it's meant to be automated, it's meant to be really efficient and pretty much real time, and it's supposed to be extremely accurate. So there shouldn't be a lot of room for human error in there. In order to accomplish this, EDI uses a standardized format that's been established for decades now at this point, industry standard format. And so, for example, it's these document types. This is just a small sample of them. But you'll see that, for example, a purchase order is referred to as EDI document number 850. And so every business document that is supported through EDI has some sort of corresponding number, and it has some sort of corresponding format for how it's supposed to work. Even though it's standardized, within that, there's still a lot of realm for flexibility and customizing it and tweaking it and things like that. But that's the general idea behind it. So yeah, so EDI. For today, we're going to talk about some examples from the perspective of, let's pretend that we are a company that manufactures and sells little wooden bowls, like this guy. And they're fancy wooden bowls, and they're very popular. And so we sell them to Target and Walmart, let's say. Those are our main customers. And they're not just sending us an email with a purchase order every day or sending us a fax or something like that. No, they're demanding an EDI integration with us so that they can send us orders in real time through EDI. And so we can communicate that way. So I'm going to keep returning to that idea. EDI is very important. The demand has only gotten bigger. It's only gotten more necessary for us to accommodate. And in order to be able to provide that, we kind of needed to rely on some sort of a third party to help us get there. And for the last 5 years, we've actually partnered with a company called SPS Commerce. And SPS Commerce, they're a leader in the space. As you can see, it's full service EDI, what they offer. It's not just the EDI technology, it's a lot of services surrounding that too. Why did we choose SPS Commerce? I think it's important to know. They're established. They've been around for over 20 years, and they're mature, so their processes are definitely ironed out. They know what they're doing. They're not. There's no guesswork involved. But I wouldn't say that those are the only reasons why we chose to work with them, because it's not really in Odoo's DNA to just choose to work with somebody because they're big. I would say that a good example of that is EasyPost, which we have a native integration to EasyPost for shipping. And we chose that over ShipStation. Even though ShipStation is big and they're a major player, we chose EasyPost partly because they're very easy to work with, and it was very easy from a developer's perspective to work with their API. And similarly, we found the same with SPS Commerce. They've always been very easy to work with, both from a commercial perspective and from a technical perspective. It's great that they also offer a bunch of additional related services to it, and they have expertise to go with it. That's nice. But yeah, it's true that they are very robust. 1 million plus trading connections. I remember when we first started working with them, they were at about 500,000 plus, and it's only been about 4.5 years. So yeah, it's a lot. And by trading connections, we mean established connections between, say, a client and their customer. But they also go beyond that to offer a lot of options for drop shipping, which is great, and third-party logistics, which those options are always becoming more and more in high demand. As of now, that's more or less the best way to actually have an integration with Odoo and a third-party logistics. It's through EDI, unless you build something custom. So a lot of options and a lot of reasons why it made sense. But this isn't really about SPS. I'm not trying to sell SPS themselves. That's their job. And I think if you're watching the live broadcast right now, I believe we have a representative from SPS in there. So if you're there, hello. Other than that, though, my main focus is to talk about the integration itself and what does that mean for Odoo. And so I'm just going to break it down document type by document type, because what it is we support, with our module that we have, this integration, we support the ability to use EDI transactions that connect to Odoo to help you with your day-to-day business. And we've been doing it for about 4.5 years with this, and it's really gotten better over time. I'm going to start by talking about the established document types that we've already had for the last 4 years. These are standard. These are the ones that we launched right out of the gate because they're very popular and in demand. First off, the 850 purchase order. It's pretty straightforward to understand. Basically, let's say that, again, we're the wooden bowl company and we are selling to Walmart. Walmart is our huge customer that buys thousands and thousands of our wooden bowls, and they're sending us orders all the time. So they're sending us purchase orders, and they're doing it through an EDI channel, through the SPS Commerce integration. And what happens is it comes into Odoo as a sales order. I say instantaneous, but technically by default, it's on a schedule. Typically every 15 minutes it updates it, although the frequency can be updated if you want. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Their purchase order uses this integration that we have, and it populates and creates sales orders in Odoo. And you could have hundreds and hundreds of sales orders all getting created at the same time. This is basically what kicks off a lot of these EDI workflows. And I already mentioned it before, but just to be really clear, this is an automated thing. It happens instantaneously, and it's a lot more efficient and better for high volume compared to, say, if Walmart wanted to send you an email with a PDF attachment of every order. That's not going to happen. So this is kind of real-time, instantaneous, rapid data interchange. So another document type is the PO acknowledgement. And this is kind of the next step in the workflow where say that a person needs to manually go and look at that order and decide if we're going to confirm it or not. Most of the time we're going to confirm it, but maybe if there's some issue, maybe we can't confirm it. But basically in Odoo, if you're familiar, once you click confirm on a sales order, at that moment, it can actually send an 855 form back through the EDI connection to your customer to let them know order received and confirmed. So it's pretty straightforward, but it can be really important if your client, like Walmart, is sending you 100 orders and only 98 of them can be confirmed. They're going to want to know which ones were confirmed and which ones were not. And if they weren't confirmed, they might want to follow up with you and say, why is that not confirmed? Whatever. So anyway, so acknowledgement just means that not only have we received it, but it's confirmed, we're going to move forward with it. So PO acknowledgement. Next is the delivery validation, 856. So let's move a little bit further and say that you've carried the order along to your warehouse, and your team goes and they pick the wooden bowls from the shelves, they stick them in a box and pack them, they put labels on them, and then they get it out the door, and they're picked up, and they're on their way to one of Walmart's distribution centers. So in Odoo, that's a delivery, and you validate the delivery is complete. It's left your warehouse, the stock is depleted. In EDI terms, the 856 takes that confirmed delivery and it sends it out to Walmart and lets them know it's shipped. Pretty straightforward, but it's coming from your inventory operations, and it lets them know it's left the warehouse and it's on their way, either to them or to their end client location, something like that. And related to that, I should say that we also support ASN shipping labels. So in addition to saying, yes, it's shipped, you could also send a copy of the shipping label to them with the tracking information so they have that. I should say that most of the time, special configuration is required or customization is required because everybody has different shipping carriers, and sometimes the labels might need customization. But it's something that can go along with the delivery. And the final document that we've already been supporting for the last 4.5 years or so, which is very popular, is the invoice itself. So to close out this whole order to invoice flow, let's say that now that you've shipped it, you're going to create an invoice either for that one shipment, or maybe you're going to do an invoice for the whole month's worth of shipments, whatever. Either way, you're making an invoice in your accounting in Odoo, and it's going to be sent out via EDI as an 810 document to Walmart so that they can receive it, and they'll probably receive it as a bill, and hopefully you'll get paid. That's kind of the whole idea. So those 4 document types, that's what we've had and been working with for the last 4.5 years or so. It covers a lot of ground, and as you can see, it's already basically allowing you to automate your business transactions to a really high degree from an order processing perspective, from a delivery and fulfillment perspective, and from a billing perspective. But it's exciting to say that we have new functionality to share, some of which got debuted late last year, some of it maybe more recently than that, but it's all definitely new since the last time we did a webinar on this, so it's worth talking about. So what do we have that's new for SPS? Let's start with new document types. So we actually have a new document type called the 846, which is an inventory inquiry. What is that? Basically, it's really useful when you're relying on a third-party logistics company or somebody to ship for you and store your product for you. So let's say that we've reached a point where our wooden bowls, we don't really want to store them ourselves in our own warehouse, or at least that's not the main way we want to deal with it. Instead, we want to hire some third-party logistics company, and we're going to send them a whole bunch of bowls, and then they're the ones that are going to store and ship our bowls to Walmart and Target and Amazon for us. Every time they do this, and every time they update their inventory, I should say, when they do that, they can send in an update that tells you what the stock levels are. And so basically it's updating your stock levels. Separate from deliveries, separate from shipments, it's just this is what we currently have in stock. And that's super useful because otherwise it could be hard to have that visibility and to know, is our third-party logistics company running out of stock or not? So yeah, that updates stock levels when you're working with 3PLs. The other document that's also related to 3PLs and third-party shippers and drop shipping is the 945 shipping advice. And shipping advice is a weird name for it, but what it really is that when they do a shipment for you, so your third-party logistics company, let's say that they fulfill an order by shipping 100 bowls to Walmart, they can give you an update that has shipped and lets you know, okay, this is now shipped out. So it's different than the stock levels changing, although it's related. This is more specifically, it has now shipped, this specific order has shipped. So yeah, so those 2 document types, as you can see, are very specific to dropshipping functionality and third-party logistics situations. And to me, it's really exciting because for years and years, customers have wanted something that allows them to integrate with their third-party logistics company. And we didn't really have anything out of the box. And this is the best solution that we have that has been created so far, I would say, these 2 document types. So beyond new document types, there's also expanded functionality to existing document types. And so as I mentioned at the beginning, we have the 850, which is, again, as a reminder, a purchase order comes in and it creates a sales order in Odoo. We've had that for years. But now we have the reverse of that as well. And that's called the 850 outbound. What that means, it's actually a completely different workflow. It's say that as a wooden bowl manufacturer, we buy a whole lot of wood. We purchase wood, we purchase lumber from some supplier, and it's very important to us. We have to buy a whole bunch of it. So as a result, we want to make an EDI connection to our supplier. So in the purchase app in Odoo, we make a purchase order for a whole bunch of wood, and it uses an EDI connection, the same document type, but in a reverse direction. And it sends it out to our wood supplier, and they receive it as an order in whatever system they're using. Maybe they're using SAP, who knows? Hopefully they use Odoo, that would be ideal. But regardless, it doesn't matter because of the standardized format. You're able to instantly get purchase orders sent out of the system and into your supplier's hands. So that's a new workflow, and it was very much in demand from the beginning, but it took a little while because it was different. It's a different operation completely when you're pushing something out. So we have that. That's good now. And then we also have another bidirectional flow. As I mentioned earlier, you can have an invoice in Odoo, and you send it out, and then your customer, like Walmart, would receive it, and they'd consider it a bill. So we've had that. But now what we have is the reverse of that, the 810 inbound, which basically means, say that our wood supplier, our vendor that we buy wood from, they create an invoice maybe once a month, something like that. And it's, as you might already be guessing, they send those invoices to us through an EDI 810 inbound, and we receive them as a bill. So that relationship between invoices and bills from one direction to the other, it's the same logic as the 850 outbound. Basically, now you can have this where you're receiving bills in automated. There's other ways to receive bills in mass in Odoo. It has a lot of options. Maybe you've checked out some of the OCR capabilities, some of the AI for that. But sometimes what makes sense and what your vendor wants is to specifically have this kind of EDI relationship set up. And now we support it. So aside from the document types, another thing that is new and is a huge improvement, although it's really kind of more behind the scenes, is that we've improved the module itself to the point where it's a lot easier and faster to set it up. A good kind of way to look at it is that it's a lot more heavy on configuration rather than coding now. So you'll see that there's this settings page for mapping when you're setting up your different EDI connections. And for each one of these documents that you're mapping, you get to choose the section. You can really drill into it and say within each section, there's a bunch of content, and you want to try to map that to particular fields in Odoo. It has a lot in common with doing data import, I would say. But the main thing is that this used to mostly be done through coding, and it was complicated and time consuming, even for our own internal team when they're setting this up for people. But now, as you can see, it's a lot more like a wizard, for lack of a better word, to make it a lot faster. And it goes deeper where when you're choosing what you want to map, if you click on it, it'll take you to an advanced mapping options screen, which has a lot of ready to go checkboxes that we basically created and learned from experience what's going to save time when we're setting it up. So it's things like if something needs to import and then map to multiple fields, you got one line of data and you're splitting it across a couple fields, and then the conditions and information related to that. And then sometimes there could be things that have dependencies where it's looking at certain conditions before it actually does the creation of new content. This isn't a tutorial, and also I'm not the one that would give a tutorial on this, but the main point is this gives us a much quicker setup time than it used to in the past. So it means less hours to set this up, which is ideal because it can be complex, as you might imagine, based off of just seeing this. But this is a huge improvement in terms of the speed with which we can deploy it. Another big improvement, a big change, which I think everybody would be excited about, is we did an overhaul on the pricing structure for it. And it was kind of inspired by the fact that Odoo did an overall pricing restructure in the end of 2022. If you're a longtime Odooer, you'll recall that we used to have a pricing structure for Odoo where it was you pay for users and then you pay for which apps you want. And so your contract could have many, many, many lines, and it was kind of complicated. And then we simplified, so now you're just paying for users. So we wanted to take the same approach to our EDI integration. And so the old pricing used to be you have a base fee, just a flat 90 per month, USD in North America. And then whatever document types you want, whether you want the 850 purchase order or the 810 invoice, whatever, that would add an additional 30 per month, 36 per month. It would be a range, and it would depend on how complex it was or how customized you need it to be. And so it could really add up. The way it used to be, it could end up being $220 a month or even more. But now the new pricing is just $126 per month for both the base module and the ability to use all of the supported doc types in both directions. So for that fee, you can get the 850, you can get the 810, you can get the 856, blah, blah, blah. I'm again reminding that this is US pricing, and the pricing in your specific region could vary, just as the currency can vary too. But I should say that the ballpark, it's equivalent to that, more or less. I should also say that this new pricing, we can't retroactively apply it to version 15 or 14, but it can apply to the newer version that's been refactored that I talked about earlier. So yeah, it's an improvement in the recurring fee. The recurring fee is a lot more forgiving and probably more scalable now. So that leads me to the question that I always get from people around the world. How do I get it, right? Because as you might find out, and you may have already found this out, you can't just go into Odoo and go to apps and search SPS or search EDI and find it. It's not there. It's not built into the production instance. And it's also not on the third-party app store because it's not a third-party app. It is official Odoo IP. How to get it is, it's kind of a custom module that we have that we can provide. And so the best way to get it is start by contacting your account manager if you're an existing customer, or contact your business advisor, sales rep if you're evaluating Odoo right now, or your partner if you work with a partner. So start there because you're going to want to get their advice and fill them in on what do you want. Which document types matter to you? How many trading partners do you need? And then within that, we need to analyze how much customization might be required. Is it pretty much plug and play? Well, more or less. Or is there need for a lot of customization through custom fields and stuff like that? We'll need to find out so that we can assess it. First and foremost, Odoo's professional services team can install this. They can configure it, customize it, and maintain it using success pack hours. More than most parts of the Odoo platform, this is an area that the majority of the expertise lies within the internal Odoo team because it is built by the Odoo internal team. And at this time, there is no broad documentation. You won't go to the website and find documentation that says everything about it. So the expertise is somewhat localized. And so it is often the professional recommendation to utilize our team to deploy it. Not only can they install it and configure it and customize it for you, but the ongoing maintenance to make sure it keeps working is really important too, because you don't want this to break all of a sudden. As far as how much would it cost, how many hours, how many success pack hours, it really depends. General rule is the more trading partners that you need and the more document types, the more hours it'll require. So if you do one main trading partner like Walmart and you do 2 document types, that's going to be a lot quicker and simpler versus you have 6 trading partners and you use all the document types. So it all starts with, you need to kind of get an estimate. I wish there was a way around that. Maybe in the future, it'll be a lot more cut and copy paste. It probably will. But for now, it's something where you kind of need to get an estimate to find out. And I should also mention an alternative approach is you work with a partner. And this is something we didn't necessarily highlight too much in the past because we hadn't really encountered it a whole lot, but we have more experience with it over the last few years. You can work with a partner, and what we can do, Odoo can transfer the code of the module to a partner for configuration, and the partner can take it from there and they can configure it, and the partner can even build off of it and customize on it. In which case, since we're not maintaining it, there wouldn't be any recurring fees that we charge. But there's a huge catch to it, which is really important for everybody to understand. And I wish it was easier to make sure everybody's completely on the same page about this, but it's hard without just being very, very explicit and very clear. Like I said, there is no easy setup guide. There's no easy documentation page or FAQ for how to set it up yourself. And so honestly, in most cases, implementation pack hours will still probably be required to some extent, even if you're working with a partner. Recommended is for a partner implementation, it's good to probably still hire Odoo to set up part of the configuration, and then maybe the partner can learn along the way and then take it from there. We do have a couple partners that have actually worked with this quite a few times, but most partners out in the partner network haven't gotten the benefit of working on this. Now, we are working on improving documentation. It is being worked on gradually. I don't have a timeline for when it'll be ready, but maybe you're watching this video in 2026 and now you are lucky that we have perfect documentation out there and so people can do it themselves. At this point, my main recommendation is in most cases, you're probably going to want to pay for some degree of professional services from Odoo to help deploy it. And I hope I've been very explicit about that. So to summarize, this connector, it's unique within the Odoo offering, but it's fantastic because it opens doors for clients. It is a really great option for whenever you have high volume B2B transactions. Ideally 1 to 5 main trading partners. It's not like it's impossible beyond that, but I would say that beyond that, it could become quite costly to do the implementation for it and do the setup. So just keep that in mind. It's great for dropshipping use cases, as I mentioned before, in 3PL. And note that it can scale really well because you might start with just one document type, just to get the orders in. We have clients that only use EDI just for that because that's the only thing that really matters is getting those orders in. But when you reach a certain point in the future, you might start to scale up so that you're sending out invoices, that kind of thing. And that's it. At this point, if you have questions and you want to ask them, I do recommend starting to put it in the chat on the YouTube video if you're in the live broadcast of this. And I'll try to answer questions as I can. There's these helpful links over here. Experience is a little bit out of date because that actually took place in Q4, but we have another one coming up later this year. So in a way that hashtag never dies. But definitely you can follow us on social media and things like that. I also want to give a shout out to our very kind and very knowledgeable and helpful point of contact at SPS Commerce, Kevin Gam. If you want to get information about the SPS Commerce side of things, he's the person to coordinate with. Even if you're in, say, Hong Kong, or even if you're in Europe, though he is primarily a North American contact, he's a good first point of contact and he can get you into the right hands. So his email, kmgam@spscommerce.com. So yeah, at this point, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to go check to see if we have any main questions yet. I did receive some questions via email leading up to this, so I'll start with those. So here's a popular question that I get sent to me a lot, which is, can we get the SPS commerce integration or EDI connector in Europe? Or can we get it in Australia? Or can we get it in Hong Kong or Antarctica? The answer is yes, it can be. It should be available globally wherever SPS Commerce operates. And they operate in some markets more than others. It overlaps with Odoo a lot, but I would say that in general, they don't do as much in Latin America, I would say. Maybe I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, sorry. But as far as getting the connector in a non-North American market, it's totally an option. We have provided it for somebody in Europe. We have provided it for somebody in Australia relatively recently. It's the same process in the sense that you should start with talking to your account manager or your business advisor or your partner. And there's a very good chance that what they're going to do is coordinate with us because this was originally developed here in the North American market. And the overall product manager and product owner for it is the head of development here in San Francisco. So there's a good chance that they're going to coordinate with us, but that's fine. We're happy to spread the word. We're happy to educate them, hold their hands, however is necessary. So yeah, totally an option in other markets. Pricing is a little bit different, but it's about the same. It's relative to the pricing of the region. So somebody asked, I want to learn to apply in small and medium businesses in Brazil. So I think the question is SPS Commerce available in Brazil? And I'm pretty sure it is. I could be wrong. Now, as far as how many well-established supplier connections there are in Brazil, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, my recommendation is start by talking to Kevin Gam, who you have the email here. And I think as far as countries in Latin America and South America go, I think Brazil and Mexico are the ones where you're most likely to see some SPS Commerce functionality. Somebody asked, and this is a common question, what are the costs that you have to pay to SPS Commerce themselves? And that's a good question. I can't answer that. I don't actually have that information. And it's okay. The way that we always handle it is you just reach out to SPS Commerce for it. I know that it varies depending on some factors like volume and that kind of thing. But for sure, you'll need to contact them for a specific pricing. One cool thing about SPS Commerce is that they do have some options. So maybe you're not at a point where you really need the integration yet, but you want to have some EDI capabilities through maybe a more manual way of entering it. And that's an option. And so it's something that you can learn about and then maybe plan for the future. Another question, and this is an interesting one. Some people ask, do we work with any alternatives besides SPS Commerce? So some sort of different EDI provider besides SPS Commerce. And the answer is, at this time, SPS Commerce is the one that we are by far the most established with and have worked with the most. But Odoo, if you look at our third-party app store, there are over 40,000 third-party apps at this point in time in March 2024. And it's a large part of that is because we are open. We're generally open. And if a client is already working with some provider that I'm not aware of and they really want to make it happen, we're not going to necessarily say no. And it's possible that parts of this existing module can be reused. At this time, I don't have anything to announce for any other providers. And I think that's a testament to how well it's generally working out with it, SPS Commerce. It's possible that in the future we'll have a few options. We're unlikely to ever have like an exclusivity clause or anything like that because it's our goal to open up doors, not, funnel people through one particular option or something. Here's another question. Somebody asks, is Odoo a good solution for integrate with WooCommerce? It's a good question. It's not exactly related to EDI, but it's fun to talk about, and it's about getting orders and connecting. Odoo and WooCommerce. So there are connectors. If you look at the third-party app store, first and foremost, you'll find some connectors that hook up to WooCommerce. I know there's one from ME Pro. There's one from, I think, WebCool. So it's a common request, and people do it. And so just based on the fact that that exists and people download it and people use it, I think that's a pretty good answer to your question. Can it be good? Sure. There's even a module on the WooCommerce shop page itself that you can use as an alternative. So not even on the App Store, but on the WooCommerce store. So it's a thing. But that being said, it'll never, ever, ever be as good as just using Odoo e-commerce. The native integration of Odoo e-commerce is always going to bring a lot more benefits. That's our philosophy. We believe you should do as much within Odoo as you possibly can. And a good example is that if you want to make some modifications to your products on the back end and you want to add some custom fields to how those products are categorized, it can immediately display and show up and go into practice on the Odoo website. It's always going to be a lot easier and a lot smoother to do that than it is to modify it in Odoo and then try to modify it in WooCommerce and then modify your connection to make sure that the connection still works. So maybe I'm biased, but Odoo e-commerce is the future. I think that's it. I think that we're good on time. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your account manager or your partner or your business advisor. And thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you in the next webinar.